Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel, and I'm in the conservatory today because this is a video finally about the new version of my allotment management and gardening database. Now, if you've already got this database, there are only a few small upgrades to it, and you'll see those in the video. If you haven't already got the database, it's worth a few words about whether this database is appropriate for you. So I recommend you only really consider it if you're already kind of familiar with a spreadsheet, you know your way around a spreadsheet, and you're looking for something a little bit more fun or a bit more visual, a little bit more powerful. Or if you already know your way around a web browser and sort of database apps and things like that. So it is kind of, to get the best out of it, you do need to be moderately IT literate. Now, I will have a how-to course, a sort of user guide course, probably overstating it, sorry, a user guide video that will come out after this one. And that will sort of take you through a bit more hand-holding than in this video, because this one is just really a kind of how do you use it, and you know, a little bit about the design, how the different tables in it link together and things like that. But it's not a hand-holding, you know, so I'll just assume that you know basically how it all works. And it's based on the Airtable platform. So if you want to figure out more of the underlying mechanisms and sort of how to customize it and build a database off of mine, then just look at any of the Airtable videos, and you know, that should be really helpful for you. Now, the other thing is, this database is fantastic if you want to customize it and make it your own. And I really recommend you do that, because, you know, what suits my needs almost certainly won't suit your needs. And that's the beauty of this database and the way that it's been built, is it's really designed for people to take and embrace and extend. And yeah, I'd love you to do that, and I'd love you to publish your own versions of this for other people. So don't feel that just because you've downloaded mine that I've got some sort of proprietary hold over you. No, just take it, customize it, build on top of it, share it with other people. I'm quite happy for you to do that. And the final thing is that you can take a copy of this database with my data or without my data. And you may want to do both of those things, but it's probably really useful to take a copy of it with all my data in it and just sort of browse around and play around and become familiar with it with data in it, because it's a lot easier to see the power of it when there's data in, and you know, decide whether you want to invest the time and effort putting your data in by looking at it with mine, because it's a lot of effort to put all your own data in, and then if you find that it just doesn't really suit your needs, then then that will probably be quite frustrating. And then finally, it's really a web-based app, but you can download clients for Windows PCs, and I think Apple Macs, but I don't know because I don't use Apple Mac. But for Windows PCs at least, but really it's just an encapsulated web page. But it's really good. It's a really powerful and sophisticated web app. There are apps for Android and iOS as well. They are nowhere near as capable as the web app, actually for the iPad as well. But anyway, they're nowhere near as capable. So that's just a little bit of a caution. So lots of things I'll show you in this video on the PC, in the browser, you won't be able to do on the web app. But a lot of the basic functionality, just looking up things, you know, updating data, you can use your phone for that. And that's the way I use it all the time. I find it fantastic when I'm out on the plot and I just need to know, you know, what am I meant to be sowing today or what am I meant to be planting today? Yeah, I can just look that up. It's really useful. You know, what's meant to be in what bed, I can just look up the bed database and find that out. If I've just planted something, I can put the date in that I planted it, things like that. It's just really great for that. So, okay, with that preamble, let's dive in and have a look at the database, and I hope you like it. Okay, so we're starting off at the Airtable homepage, and there's a variety of databases here. There's my allotment management database, my planning database, a mileage tracker, books that I've read, a diary, etc, etc. So let's take a look at the allotment management database, and you can see immediately that this looks very spreadsheet-like. So this one we're looking at is the harvest tally, and you can see here a record for every harvest that we've done so far this year. You can also see the value of those harvests and the total down at the bottom here, £372.50 harvested so far this year. Now it's worth just looking at a few features here very quickly. So the value of the harvest is calculated by taking the number of boxes that we harvested, 21, and multiplying that by £2.50, which is the average value of a harvest box. So you can have all these formulas, so that's really nice. What you can also do is you can have different views of the same data. So let's look at a gallery view. So you can see now these are just photographs of those same harvests. So let's take a look now at the planning database. So in this case we've got quite a few tables in this database. We've got the varieties table, the seed packets table, the first harvest dates table, the sowing log table, and a bed plan table. There's some others here, but let's not worry about those. Everything starts really with the varieties database. So here we've got effectively what looks like a big spreadsheet of all of the different varieties. So for example, we could take this one, which is Red Ace, and you can see that I'm planning to sow that this year. There's a photograph of it there, which looks quite nice. I've classified it as a root. It's type beetroot. It's a vegetable. I don't sow it direct. There's some information about it, and the particular thing about it is it's resistant to fungal leaf spot, which we get quite a lot of. And there's loads and loads and loads more information about where and when I recommend to sow it, what times of year to sow it, its health benefits, how tasty it is, how much it costs in the shops, etc, etc, all sorts of information, how many to sow per frame, the spacings, ideal germination temperatures, all sorts of information. So that's where I record everything that I know really about the varieties. Now we also got here same sort of thing, so we've got lovely gallery view here where we can see really lovely pictures, and you can see the same sort of thing here. So we've got, for example, no garlic, so stir-on onion, for example, it's in the family Allium, and the type that I've classified it as is main crop onion. Now everything on here is customizable, so if you don't want to call things main crop onions, you just want to call them, onion, for example, then you could do that and make that change. So each of these cards is also customizable. So for example, you might want to show on the card the recommended sowing dates, and you might want to include, for example, harvest dates. So you can see there for our stir-on onion, again, that's stir-on onions used as a bunching onion, recommended sowing dates and harvest dates. So I really love this customizable nature, and everything kind of links off the varieties database. So when I record a seed packet, that links back to the variety of that seed. When I record a first harvest date, it's the first harvest date of a particular variety in the varieties database. When I sow something, it's a batch of seeds from the varieties database. And so I never have to duplicate information in these other tables that's already in the varieties database. I just link seed packets to varieties. And so that's a really lovely thing about Airtable, is it allows you to make linkages between the tables. So let's take a look now at the seed packet database. So here's an example where every packet of seeds that I've got is linked to the associated variety. So for example, we've got here Little Gem. If I click on Little Gem here, it just opens up the record from, as you can see there, from the varieties database. So we know everything about Little Gem database, everything about Little Gem from the varieties database. Now again, we can do all sorts of really useful things by creating different queries or views. So for example, here's a list of everything that I need to buy because these seed packets have all expired. Here's a list of everything that's expiring soon. And here is a look at all the varieties associated with those seed packets rather than the seed packets themselves. And again, as I said, you can customize these cards to show anything you want. So for example, I might want to show what have I got there? Buy again. Yeah. So if I need to buy it again, then I can show the buy again date on the card. So then we've got the first harvest dates. And so every time I harvest something for the first time, so the first harvest of Red Kitten, for example, this one here, then again, I'm just linking that to the varieties database. And just to show you that, I'll just do one of those. So let's pretend that I've just done a harvest of, for the first time this year, of stir-on spring onions. So I picked that. And where did I harvest it from? Well, I harvested it from a low tunnel. When did I harvest it? Today. Oh, that's the entry for 2019, so let's get rid of that. I harvested it today in 2020. And I can put a sowing date in there if I want, and in this case, the sowing date was the 21st of August, for example. And then I've got the addition of stir-on to my first harvest dates database. And that's the full gallery, so we're looking at data from 2019 here. And so if we zoom up to the top here, zoom up to the top, you can see, for example, that the first harvest of Calabrese Marathon was on the 24th of 2018, and it was on the 1st of June 2019. So it'll be interesting to see when it is in 2020. So let's take a look at the sowing log, and it's a very sort of similar story here. Let's just create an entry in the sowing log. So again, I'm just picking what I want to sow. So let's say I want to sow Red Kitten spinach. So I can say how many stations do I want to sow. Well, let's say I want to sow a 40 cell tray, and I normally put two seeds per station, and I'm going to sow it today, and I'll mark it as done because I'm going to do it today. And so it automatically calculates, because it's a formula there, that its sowing month is January. So I can pick where I'm going to sow it. Well, I'm actually going to sow it on, say, the windowsill in the conservatory. And then when it germinates, I can pick the germination date, and that allows the database to calculate how many days it took to germinate, which is really useful when you're doing your planning. And similarly, you can record how many of those 40 cells you planted, what the planting date was, what the first harvest date was, what the last harvest date was, and that starts to build up all of this data down here: days to germinate, how long it was in plugs before it was planted, how long it last stayed in the bed before it was pulled up, how many days to the first harvest, and how many days of harvest we had. I can record problems, and again I'm offered some options here. It went to seed, there were too many, it was too hot, it was too cold, etc., etc. And that's useful for next year. All sorts of information. So I don't want that record, so I'm going to delete that now. And so what we've got here is what we, let's have a look at what we're sowing in January. And all of these are now sown. So we sowed quite a few different types of lettuce, some aquadulce, broad beans, some Oregon sugar pod peas, quite a few potatoes, which have just come up actually today, some tomatoes, lots of bunching onions, lots of kales, some early cucumbers, some peppers, lots of radish, some carrots, etc. And let's now have a look at the current bed plan. So this is something that I've just added. So here you've got a bed number, and in this case I've come up with a scheme, naming scheme, and this stands for back garden, bed 1, sub bed E. And so that makes it really simple for me if I just want to look at, for example, the things that are in the back garden. I can just put bed number contains back garden. So now we're only looking at the things in the back garden. If I wanted to look at just the things in bed 5, so these are all the things that are going to get planted in bed 5. And you can see that there's multiple entries for bed 5A. There's 3 entries there because there's 3 successions. Bed B, there's 2 successions. Bed C, 3 successions. D, 3 successions. E, only 1 succession. And F, 2 successions. And so I really love this new bed planning database. And you know, it's not that sophisticated, but it's just exactly kind of what I need. And I'll just show you a couple of other things that I can do with the bed planning database. So for example, I can say harvests, and then I can pick harvests in a particular bed, but I'll delete that for now, because what I really want to know is what I'm going to be harvesting in May, for example. And I'm looking at harvest year 2020, and so this, I'm going to be harvesting lots of lettuce, lots of spinach, radishes, spring onions. Oh, I just noticed no variety names on here, so I can customize this card, and I can put variety on here, and I can also put type on here. So now I know, for example, that it's tatsoi that I'm going to be harvesting there, and lamb's lettuce, and early cucumbers, and Calabrese marathon, and claret, purple sprouting broccoli, and early French beans, and early broad beans, lots of potatoes, cauliflowers, carrots, cabbages, early beetroot, early peas, asparagus, early onions, early kales, and that's it. So that's kind of, you know, that's the way I use this bed planning database, because it tells me what I'm going to be harvesting at what time. It also says what I need to sow at what time, and yeah, loads of information about successions and things like that. So for example, if I look at this one, I need to enter the type. So if I look at the filter here, I just want type contains, and let's say I want cabbage. So these are the cabbages that I'm sowing this year. So I'm sowing January Kings, Durham Earlies, Duncans, and mini Savoys and red cabbages, because here I'm sowing 3 different types of things in the same bed. So I'm sowing mini Savoys, I'm sowing red Fugo and red Drumhead, all to sort of mature at different times. And then here I'm sowing 2 different types of Savoy cabbage, and again 2 different types of Savoy cabbage and Winter King. So quite a lot of different cabbages in different places, in different beds to mature at different times. And I can do a similar sort of thing, put carrots in here. And here's all the different carrots that we're sowing. And in some cases, I'm into sowing carrots and onions, so they appear next to each other there. And here I've got carrots and beetroot in the same bed. Lots of different carrots. So this is one of the things I really love about Airtable, is this ability to create all these different views to suit different requirements. And yeah, it's really nice. So let's take a look at successions, and here we're looking at anything with a type of French beans. So these are all the different French beans that we're sowing, but we could change that type to variety. And now we want to look, for example, at Grenoble red. So these are all the Grenoble red lettuce successions that we're sowing in different beds. So lots of Grenoble red is our favourite lettuce. And here we've got some Grenoble red interplanted with kale, for example. So I think that's kind of all of the basics of that database. And let's just very quickly go and have a look at the allotment management database. So here, for example, now we're looking at the harvest tally for 2019. So this is a log of all of the harvests. And here we record the date that we harvested and the number of boxes that we harvested. So picture 6 boxes. And this is quite a nice record. Sometimes I don't manage to get a picture. Often just like harvested 1 box here and 1 box there. I don't bother to take every single picture. But yeah, it's a pretty nice record of the harvests that we made over the year. And it's kind of nice to look back on. Again, to try and remember what were we harvesting in June, yeah, lots of fruit, really lovely, and yeah, and to kind of compare from year to year. But we harvest so many varieties of things that it's hard to keep it all in my head. So I really like that it's sort of gradually building up this database of knowledge that can be referenced from year to year. And you know, as I get older, that kind of gets more and more important. So I think we're coming to the end of the year. That's it. That was our Christmas harvest there. So yeah, it's pretty nice harvest just before Christmas. So we've got, what else have we got in here? Anything relevant? Well, we've just got weekly totals, so this is a nice little feature that the database automatically adds up for each week number all the harvests in that week to create a total number of boxes, a total number of meals from those boxes. We assume 2 meals per box basically, so it's not that complicated. The total value of all of those harvests, the total savings off our food bill of all of those harvests, and the total spending if we'd bought anything, which we haven't really bought anything this year. But again, this is what we bought last year, so again it's quite a nice record of all the sorts of different things and when we bought them, and it's pretty useful just to keep an eye on your spending. So I think I'm kind of finished now in giving you the kind of overview of how everything fits together. Because I think so I've shown you varieties. This is where we just keep a log of all the varieties that we've ever sown. And it might just be worth going back to that sort of spreadsheety sort of view, because we don't sow everything every year. So I just have this little checkbox here where I say these are the ones I'm actually sowing this year. And this is really useful. But this might be a useful point just to show you a slight bit of customization. So I can just insert a field here, and I'll insert it to the left. And I can call that one next year. So as I'm going through the year, I can put a little checkbox next to anything that I think, yeah, I definitely want to sow Cylindra next year. I definitely want to sow Bold Hardy next year. Or that could say not next year, and I could put a little checkbox against that. And then next year, I might decide, well, let's just delete this field this year and rename next year to be this year. So, it's a really simple way of customizing. You could decide, for example, you wanted to add a harvest photo. So you might right click here and say insert to the left and put harvest photo. So rather than just a photo off the web, I can just put a little attachment in here of the a photograph that I took of Cylindra beetroot that I actually harvested. And I'll just delete those. Well, I think I might leave next year in there because I think that's quite useful, but I think it's actually more useful to put not next year. So something that doesn't work out very well this year, I'll just make a note, don't bother sowing that next year. And I'll just remove those checkboxes because I'll definitely be sowing Bold Hardy and Cylindra. So yeah, let me just quickly show you the rest of the bed planning stuff. So basically what we've got here, we have a list of all of the beds, all named, all with a sort of description against them. And then we've got a list of the types of beds that we've got, again with a description against them. And this is basically just like the size of the beds, with what sort of covers and protection they've got, things like that. I've got a list of notes and lessons learned, and again this is linked to the variety. So I've got a note, the first one was grow some purple sprouting broccoli in summer. Ask Caroline and Pete what variety they grew. Maybe it was summer purple. And so against summer purple I've got that note, so when I look at or go to look at the variety summer purple, I'll see that note there, and that suggests maybe in March time I should be thinking about sowing summer purple. And I've got a copy of my sowing log from last year, and so there's a lot of entries in here, although it's just filtered at the moment to only show the entries in January, because I'm just comparing what I sowed last year in January with what I sowed this year in January, and I've not sown any Tumbling Tom Reds or any Tumbling Tom Yellows or any Sun Gold, for example. Lots of things that I sowed last year didn't really work out for me. I'm sowing all of my tomatoes a lot later this year. Just too much hassle keeping them healthy in the dark, cold months. So I think with that I'm going to call this video done. And so I hope that gives you a good idea of the database and how it hangs together. The things that are new is the seed packet database and the bed planning database, and there's a little bit more integration between the various different tables than there was before, and just a little bit of tidying up. And one of the things that I've done, which I should just sort of emphasize, which I can show you best on the bed planning, is rather than having loads and loads of these views, I've just got a handful of them now. So successions, what's growing next month, for example, that will just automatically show you next month and what is going to be in each of the beds next month. Successions enter varieties, it just shows you, you just enter the particular variety that you're interested in and it'll show you that. Successions enter type, you just enter the type of bed you're interested in and it'll just show you all the beds that contain that. etc., etc. So rather than having lots and lots of these for each different type, or lots and lots of monthly harvests, for example, for each month, there's just one entry there, and you just customize it with the month. There's a scratch pad in here which just allows you to mess around without messing up these pre-built queries. And there's a scratch pad for the gallery and a scratch pad for the view. And that's it. So let's finish here. So there we go. That's the end of this video. As I said, there will be another video that goes much more into the kind of how-to of how to get data in, how to cut and paste data, maybe from a spreadsheet, all that sort of thing. And yeah, like hints and tips and tricks and stuff that I've learned over time, how to customize it, add new fields, remove fields, hide fields, all of that. So there'll be another video that goes through all that. And yeah, so if you're using my database, I'd love a bit of feedback. If you think of something that you think I could easily add that kind of goes with the philosophy of this, which is trying to keep it not too complicated, then I'd love you to do that. Now, the other thing just to point out is there are loads of other databases that are out there that you can buy, and probably other spreadsheets and things that people have shared. And you know, I highly recommend you take a look at those. This is definitely not meant to be competing with any database or application that you'd pay for. I don't offer any support other than just, like, you know, answering questions on YouTube video discussion areas. I don't, you know, I don't really think about how you're going to migrate from one version of the database last year's to this one, for example. You know, I might mention a little bit about that, but, you know, basically it's cut and paste is the way that you do it. So, yeah, with that caution, if you want it, great. I'd love to hear about it, how you get on with it, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and I'll see you soon.